All right, I got another one for you guys. Kotaku's at it again. This time they're circling the wagons for Sweet Baby Incorporated. So I wanted to get into this article and kind of go over a couple of things. Um, Straight off the bat, though, I mean, the title is just brilliant here. Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what some gamers think it does, and yet later in the article they say they do. So we'll get to that in a minute, but let's just go over a couple of things here. Let's just start out with the first couple of paragraphs here. Sweet Baby Inc. is not the largest narrative design company in the games industry, nor is it solely responsible for the characters and stories in recent high-profile releases like Alan Wake 2, God of Ragnarok, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. All three, from what I recall, were really badly received by people. So, yikes. Not off to a good start. But good luck telling some gamers that, because obviously these are just brilliant pieces of entertainment, and they're just uncultured, I guess. That must be what it is. Last month, one of the company's consultants discovered a Steam group dedicated to detecting games that Sweet Baby Inc. has worked on. The purpose to encourage people to avoid those games because the group had deemed SBI was pushing a woke agenda by working towards greater diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Steam group now has more than 100,000 followers in its own Discord that boasts nearly 2,000 members. But this ire against Sweet Baby Inc. and the DEI initiatives in general isn't new. On October 2023, Kiwi Farms Post shared similar sentiments, stating that the company's involvement in Remedy's award-winning 2023 action game Alan Wake 2 was possibly one of the biggest scandals in gaming history. I was not actually aware until I read this article that they were involved in Alan Wake 2, but I know that one was really poorly received by people, and I don't think many people realized they were involved either. So, yeah, the game was bad. Whether they were involved or not, the game was bad, and apparently they were involved, so they contributed to the bad game. One way or another, that's just how it is. The fact of the matter is they're trying to couch this in this concept that, oh, well, having a Steam group about this is because they're just trying to destroy Sweet Baby, our poor little defenseless narrative design company, right? But the reality is, they're not saying anything on that Steam group that isn't obvious to the world. I mean, it's on their own website, and they're just publishing this information to allow people to make their own decisions. But I guess we don't want free choice in the games industry, so that's why we're writing these articles, apparently. Let's just go through a couple of things I have highlighted here, just some really interesting bits of this article. I read through the whole thing so that you kind of don't have to, but I do want to kind of put these things out there to you. I also checked, and the article is archived on archive.is. So if you want to read the whole thing in context, it is out there, so check that out when you get a chance. I've had problems with YouTube flagging videos for sharing those articles, those links to those articles. So I'm not going to put it in the description, but maybe down the road I'll put it as a comment or something. I'll do some experimentation in this video and see what happens. So let's just get right into this here. The first thing that I wanted to point out, the conversation around Sweet Baby Inc. has ignited fundamentally misinformed Gamergate-esque firestorm. Its employees have faced rampant harassment as a direct result. Industry figures have had to deny allegations that SBI comes in and completely changes their games. I spoke with several employees of Sweet Baby Inc. to learn that the company actually does and how the misunderstanding of its role in the industry highlights a far broader problem. I don't think we're under any understandings of what Sweet Baby Inc. does, although they did manage to get some random comments and twist them to make it seem like we don't understand what we're talking about or what have you, because we're not game journalists and we don't understand the complexities of the games industry and how it all really works. And how, DEI is really just a reflection of the real world, and we want you to understand that you're just you're just an idiot and a kludge, and we don't like you anymore, and we're the higher ups, so we understand these things. That's how this all comes across to me. But yeah, it's quite telling how they're writing this article. It is very much defense mode, trying to twist the narrative like Kotaku likes to do. In favor of their little special companies that they favor. But yeah, that's just the first indication of that. And let's just continue on here. So down further, they go into the discussions with and the view of the Discord. They joined the Discord and kind of dug up some dirt in the Discord and to see if we can, sling some mud around here. So one of the quotes that I really wanted to discuss is this one right here. Two members spoke with me via Discord DM, shared similar sentiments about why they believe the Steam page and subsequent Discord are important so they can identify games that were developed with support from Sweet Baby Inc. and make an informed decision. Exactly. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is because they're terrible bigots. When purchasing them, Sweet Baby Inc. Is a symptom of other ideological worldviews that I believe have taken a hold of the Western world media and gaming as a whole. A 31-year-old member of the Discord told me he also insisted, without providing evidence, that Sweet Baby Inc. adds race and identity group quotas to everything they are involved with. So I think the other ideological worldviews is everybody that likes to play games that are fun, but they don't see it that way, obviously. I mean, this is very, this is very stereotypically West Coast bubble thinking in this article, and that's what you're going to get with Kotaku, obviously. And I think that's a lot of projection too, because their ideological worldviews are all the same, and yet they think that we're all the same. I don't know. It's just stupidity. But yeah, that's kind of where that's coming from, is that West Coast bubble mentality. And then, without providing evidence, it's like, so he has to show you receipts in a DM. Is that what we're talking about here? But, the burden of proof is on the accused in this situation in reality, because they're saying that they're not doing these things. And yet, obviously, it appears that they are doing these things. Then show us that you are above board in your narrative design. Show us that you're not pushing these narratives like you're obviously doing. And clear, to be clear though, I mean, I understand that Sweet Baby Inc. is not the only problem in the industry. There are a lot of problems in this industry, and this is really more of a symptom of it, because the studios that get involved with companies like Sweet Baby Inc., they're already on the DEI train. They're already trying to think that way. They're already trying to include these things and push these narratives. So after they've hired Sweet Baby Inc., they've already decided to do these things. And there's more evidence in this article actually about that, and I'll get into that as well in a little bit too. But yeah, that's what's going on here. And it's not just Sweet Baby. There are other narrative design companies that do the same thing. And obviously studios do this on their own too. But Sweet Baby is very suspicious, because it seems like their involvement causes games to be bad. And maybe that's a coincidence, but is it a coincidence for every single game that they've worked on to end up being horrific failures that are not enjoyable games, that are not fun, that are not enjoyable to play? I don't know. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's a pattern. And people are seeing the pattern, and they don't want to be a part of it. They want to buy games that are going to be fun. So this is one way of doing it, is to check out that Steam curator page and not buy those games. So let's just continue on here. Sweet Baby Inc. isn't forcing diversity. It's happening naturally. So this is more of that point. Though these kinds of social media posts argue that companies like Sweet Baby Inc. somehow force game studios into diverse characters and storylines, the reality is vastly different. Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative design company, meaning that most of its work is focused on writing stories and dialogue. They are not a DEI consultancy firm. That means they ensure games' plot points make logical sense and they are satisfying to players. They're failing on both parts, and that characters speak and behave in consistent ways. They're also failing on that part. Narrative designers may also provide a final round of polish, like a Hollywood script doctor. For example, the team worked on Suicide Squad long after the story was written, and even then they joined just to write in-game ads, audio logs, and NPC barks. CEO Kim Belair tells me over video call. She continues, Sweet Baby Inc. at its core is a narrative design development company. A narrative development company, that means anything from the script to writing narrative design to narrative direction to story reviews. One of the things that we do offer is cultural consultations or authenticity consultations. For us, that generally means that we might be asked to look at a story if there's a character in it who is marginalized in a certain way, and the studio wants us to connect them to a consultant who can bring a little bit of that authenticity. But the perspective is never that we're coming in and injecting diversity. For the most part, it's the reverse. It's that a company has created a character that they want to make that character more representative and more interesting. And as far as more representative and more interesting, more representative maybe, but not more interesting, because they seem to be failing on those parts as well. So in terms of a consultant for your story, your narrative design, don't hire Sweet Baby Inc. because they apparently are really bad at their own jobs. The only thing they seem to be good at is injecting that representation, that that DEI. They seem to be doing a good job of that, and whether that's the studio pushing it or them pushing the studio to adopt the things that they're writing, I think it's probably 50-50. Maybe 60-40 in favor of Sweet Baby pushing the narrative. But yeah, I mean, it's both parties are guilty here. So just because the studio is telling them to write it doesn't mean that they should write it that way. So Sweet Baby is equally guilty in this context. Sweet Baby co-founder David Beddard adds that contrary to popular belief, that people making these games want to make the experience better for all players, and that more diversity and representation is a byproduct of that. Detractors would rather believe that there's a shadowy cabal of people forcing them to put that stuff in. They would rather believe a make-believe fairy tale than accept that, he says, making something more representative and more joyful for a marginalized person in a video game is not a zero-sum game. It doesn't make anything worse for the male character in the game, for the white character in the game. It erases a lot of male and white characters in the games, so it would make it worse for them because they don't exist anymore. But that aside from the point, their writing is terrible, as far as I can tell. Anything that they've had their hand in, the writing, the narrative, the storyline, it doesn't work, and it's not fun, and it's not enjoyable. It's not enjoyable. It's not fun. It's not anything that people want to play, and the sales and the concurrent player counts show that out. So yeah, it's a negative sum game. Not only does it supposedly not does it not improve the marginalized characters, but it also not improves anything else about the game. It makes everything worse. So yeah, they're failing on all points. So let's just continue on and go down to this next highlight here. They can't imagine that the work I did on Spider-Man was a story work versus adding pride flags, Kim Bella, Sweet Baby Inc. Yeah, it was more than just the pride flags. The pride flags in Spider-Man were a funny meme, but yeah, the real problem, the real gripe that people had about the Spider-Man was the story, was the gameplay, was everything about it. It was not new or interesting. It was just rehashing the same old thing and injecting more representation in it. It was not, that was the problem that people had with it, and they're falling short on understanding that, it seems. Despite the intensity of the backlash over the past few weeks, it's business as usual for Sweet Baby Inc. The companies they work for haven't been scared off. They've actually offered advice and best practices on how to move forward. So this is more evidence that the studios are just as culpable as Sweet Baby in this context, because apparently they're still hiring them and they don't care. And that is definitely to their detriment. So I would push it a field a little further than just the Steam Curator page. I'd say any studio involved with those games, fair bet that those games that they're coming out with, that they're working on now, they're going to be just as bad as the ones that are on that Curator page. So I would pay attention more to the studios and the publishers, as well as that Curator page. So anyone, anybody on that list, you should be suspicious of any game they come out with in the next few years, because they're still working with these kind of companies. They're still supporting these kind of identity politics. They're still continuing on with this path, sacrificing narrative, sacrificing gameplay, sacrificing fun for the sake of injecting their politics. And that is the ultimate problem here. So let's just keep on going here. Practices they've developed after facing harassment of their own, Bel Air tells me. With that kind of support in their corner and shared love of writing good stories, the team at Sweet Baby Inc. is determined to forge on and keep working on a litany of games, both announced and under wraps. So yeah, that's basically proof that things ain't gonna change. So I guess that Curator page is just gonna keep on getting more and more users, because there's gonna be more and more reason to see it. And then here's the last thing that I wanted to point out, and this is actually the proof that they are doing what they say they're not doing. Until the industry is more willing to openly discuss development processes, the lack of transparency will continue to be used as a straw man for bad faith arguments and characterize DEI as an imposition by nefarious unseen forces, rather than an effort to cultivate a more accurate reflection of the world around us. So they're not saying that they're not injecting DEI. They're just saying that the DEI they're injecting is good for you, and you should appreciate their efforts. So that basically nullifies everything they've said before this, because this was a giant thing that says, oh, they're not doing what you think they're doing. They're not injecting DEI. They're trying to make your games better. And then right at the bottom, the last paragraph, it says, well, we're doing it for good reasons. I mean, you can't make this up. This is why you got to read to the end, guys, because that is why. So, fortunately for you, I read the article. You didn't have to, and I got to the end and I saw the punchline. So there's the joke. Not a very funny joke, but it's a joke nonetheless. And this is going to keep happening. This is going to keep being a problem. And until they realize that injecting their politics is sacrificing good gameplay, is sacrificing the fun of these games, this is not going to change. And there is a right way and a wrong way to inject politics into a game. Not so much inject politics, because that has a bad connotation these days, but reflect political concepts in a game. You can do that very well, and developers have been doing it for many years. It's a difference between, preaching your politics to the user as a getting on your soapbox and forcing it down people's throats, versus taking a concept and extrapolating on that in the world, kind of separating yourself from your own political biases as much as you can to look at it as objectively as possible. Like taking that one political concept that you want to talk about and taking it to its logical extremes and extrapolating on that and putting it into the world and seeing what it does. Perfect example of this is the Deus Ex series. That is a political message wrapped into a game concept, into a world that extrapolates on it and lets it play out. Same thing with cyberpunk, especially the tabletop, but even the video game 2077 extrapolates on those ideas, and it does so in a way that's not ramming it down your throat. It's just putting it out there and letting it play out as the world would be in that situation. These are the right ways to do these things, but this is not how this generation of gaming consultants, I guess you would call them, are doing things. And back in the day, they didn't have narrative consultants. They wrote the game themselves. There's no reason for these companies to exist. There's no reason for Sweet Baby Inc. to exist at all. The fact of the matter is, this is all just, corporate political pandering and trying to get their little buddies. It's nepotism. It's getting their friends to be able to work on the game by hiring out their company so that they can have, their little share of the pie and screw over the people that they don't like, basically, and not hire those people. The fact of the matter is, back in the day, you had a team that was a fraction of the size of these modern teams writing better games because they had the idea and they had a small enough team to be able to make that a cohesive idea and everybody working towards the same end. They had their own narrators, they had their own designers, their own developers, their own artists, and the team functioned as a single unit to produce an output. It doesn't work like that anymore, and they are correct that it doesn't work like that anymore, but I don't think it should work this way. This is obviously producing very bad results, and there's a chance of great success, but there's also the very likely end result, which is you end up with games like Alan Wake 2, God of War Ragnarok, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. So that's where we're at. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was a bit of a long one today, but I really wanted to cover this and get you guys some information so you wouldn't have to read this article. And this whole thing is turning out to be a really interesting saga developing. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. Maybe I'll have to do another video or two on it as things develop. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, give it a like, and I will talk to you guys later.